Well, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to briefly to begin the introductions. I know some people are still trailing in, but I figured we may as well just start this because we hope this opening session to be really short. I just wanted to start off by thanking everybody for coming and to celebrate what has really been a fabulous decade. Seems like it was just yesterday when I joined the Penn faculty. I see some of my colleagues like David and Herb. It was just something like yesterday. It was fairly recent, but I sort of feel the same way. But these moments give you a nice chance to stop and look back and think about how far we've come. And that's why these moments are so important, and that's why I'm so grateful to all of you that you came to share it with us. So thank you very much for that. I won't go on very long. The idea is I'm going to give a brief introduction just to welcome all of you here, and then we'll let you break and eat in peace the way you should do in a civilized way. But before that, one thing I would like to do, I'm about to introduce the Dean to welcome you as well, and after he's done, we will adjourn the program until after everyone's done with lunch, and then we will we'll present some things, some remarks about how the program is developed, and we'll also have two students, a student and a recent graduate, to share their experiences with the program, because they, in many ways, are the ultimate reason all of us we're here in law schools, because we wouldn't exist without those, the contributions of the students and what that means. So just welcome briefly, and at this point, I would like to introduce one of my best friends on the faculty, who I actually had the privilege of knowing even before either one of us were law professors, Dean Ted Ruger.
Thank you, Christopher. It's a great pleasure and privilege to welcome you all here today. It has been a really auspicious decade for CTIC, which kind of started with the vision of the faculty represented here in the room, and has grown into new areas, has grown in terms of the people involved. This could not be a more important area. The myriad of connections between law and emerging science and technology could not be a more important direction to move ahead for the next decade and more. I think of and I'm so pleased to see alumni from different decades back here. I think of the way that our IP faculty has grown, where we now have over a half dozen elite scholars working on different dimensions of law and technology. We have a law and technology clinic, the Detkin IP clinic, run by Cindy Dahl. We have student interest, and the number of students, many of you reflected in this room, who come to us with science and technology background and interest is as high as it's ever been. So, and I guess if we were wondering about the importance of law and technology, I think you could say that an industry has really made it in terms of relevance when it's getting scrutinized by congressional committees. And so this week, it used to be the oil industry, then first the railroads, then the oil, then the tobacco. And so I think, it's another external indicia of how important this is. Our philosophy of centers, I couldn't be prouder of kind of the way that CTIC has operated as a center under the leadership of the many faculty leaders, Christopher, you, and many others in this room, and some not in this room. Our philosophy of centers is not a bricks and mortar philosophy. There is no fancy CTIC house, and no matter what suasion I get. But in all seriousness, a center to us is the human capital involved, the faculty, the students, the staff, the fellows, the future academic stars who are affiliated with CTIC, the alumni who have come back, and the many connections. And that CTIC embodies that to the fullest. I don't think there's a center we have here at Penn that involves more faculty, more students, and kind of really reaches the full breadth. So I'm really proud and appreciative to Professor Yu and the many faculty, students, staff, and alumni who have worked to build this, and really happy to help host this auspicious 10-year celebration. So thank you, and enjoy your lunch, and there's obviously full programming today, so thanks.
Please enjoy your lunch. We'll see you shortly after everyone's dined for a few brief remarks from our distinguished students, alumni, and to help share with you what we've accomplished in the last decade. Thank you. Well, sorry to interrupt the lovely repast we're getting. I've already got one comment. They're expecting the typical buffet chafing dishes stuff, and for a celebration this important, there's no way we could do that. Thank you again, and welcome once again to us the 10th anniversary celebration for CTIC. We're thrilled that you're all here, and it's really been a wonderful moment for all of us to sit back and think about how much has changed and how much we've grown. But the best way to do this is actually to hear some voices. So we'd like to open this with a short video that we have prepared for the occasion. The growth that we've seen over the past 10 years in CTIC is incredibly gratifying and ratifies something I think we all know, which is the incredible importance of technology and how that has just blossomed in the last decade.
We have a core set of law and technology faculty, each of who specializes in a different area and brings a different methodological narrative. So, for example, we have Professor Wagner, who is an empirically oriented patent law person. We have then Professor Gideon Parchamovsky, who's a law and economics theorist who works on copyright, patent, and intellectual property more generally.
One of the realities of law and technology is that it's interdisciplinary in nature. You can just study it from one perspective, whether it's law or engineering or economics. We really try to bring them all together. So we have active involvement from people from the engineering school, from Wharton, from Annenberg in the communications school.
If you do an MCIT degree, you're not historically a programmer, so you've learned that you can learn an entire new skill set relatively quickly. You have a legal education at one of the best law schools in the country. It gives you exposure to the types of problems that your clients will have to face.
My mission is to expose the students to technology and to the thoughts, views, and goals of people that practice technology, the engineers and the business people.
Throughout undergrad, I was doing an aerospace engineering degree. I was always really interested in space innovation. So being able to come down to DC for the summer, work at NASA, and get some firsthand experience working with the different lawyers around there, being in their intellectual property group, it was a really cool experience.
Going to the FCC was not at all on my radar when I started as a 1L at Penn. It really was my experience in Christopher Yu's tech policy classes that put it on my radar, and in fact put it squarely in my sights for something that I wanted to do with my career.
These are students who are focused. These are students who come in with an awareness of how the market for technology works and how they're trying to mold the idea of thinking like a lawyer with the idea of thinking like a technologist.
You are seeing so many programs and different speaker series that are being spawned now because Penn, University of Pennsylvania, is excited about innovation and entrepreneurship. We're sort of at ground zero of that. We've got the lawyers that are interested in helping the entrepreneurs and the innovators succeed.
It's not just an ivory tower. We're actually trying to get engaged in real policy disputes and to bring the expertise that's locked in universities and make them part of discourse.
People have for the longest time been critical of the divergence between different fields and not really bringing them together pedagogically. We've come out as having taken a significant initiative in this space. And if it's reaching the federal judiciary and prominent federal judges like Richard Posner, I think that tells you that there's at least some element of payoff.
The days when you could just be a lawyer are over. And someone who has a rich and deep understanding of what the clients need and how the world really works, I think, have a tremendous advantage in this world.
Congratulations to all involved in the great work of the Center for Technology, Innovation, and Competition. It's inspiring to see the center's tremendous growth and success. 10 years ago, the center's ambitious agenda focused primarily on IP law. Today, CTIC is the hub for law and technology at Penn. We can only imagine what the next 10 years will bring. Congratulations, CTIC, and job well done.
And thanks to everyone who made that possible, and special thanks to Matt Marin, who's actually back there, for doing such a beautiful job on this. So it's really amazing to me when I think back, and think back 10 years when I joined this faculty, And as Ted said, that well, just to put yourself in the environment, the easiest way, my benchmark is the iPhone was introduced in 2007. This device we can't seem to live without. It seems to be glued in our hands, and we get twitchy when we don't have battery power for even just the slightest amount of time. Didn't exist when we started this center. And it's a testament to how the tech space has grown. It's creating value. It's creating new ways to live and benefit people. And what Ted said is quite right. When I joined the faculty, actually, I'm up there as number 3. When I joined it, both Gideon, Professor Parchamovsky and Professor Wagner were here before I was. And they were doing a very traditional IP-based curriculum and doing it extremely well, and they were off to a start. And I had the privilege of joining what was already a very distinguished group. But since then, actually, we've gone beyond that. Every year, the year after I joined, Professor Abrams joined, and then Professor Balganesh the year after, and then Professor Wilkinson Ryan, Professor Dahl, and now we've been joined most recently by Professors David Hoffman, Allison Hoffman, and Herb Hovenkamp, which I think has just made what was a wonderful program and a wonderful opportunity just even stronger. In many ways, I think we said that we are here for the students and the educational mission that we share. But on the other hand, it is the faculty are essential in making the kind of a student experience that's really making Penn possible. Just so you know, it's not just about faculty and the JD students. We have a legacy where we actually have a program which we call a fellowship program. It's essentially for JDs or people who are thinking about academic careers, or will help us on specific research projects we're doing. We're actually very proud that we've had a number of them through this program. A number of them are here with us today. And we've successfully placed every student that we've attempted that has come through the program and was entering the law teaching market into a law teaching job. They're now teaching at Ohio State, University of Nebraska, University of Akron, Leeds in England. And we're actually very proud of that as a phenomenon as well. And it's a way to create another set of opportunities, more or less on the faculty side. And that's been a huge part of what we're doing on the human side. What's been striking to me is we also do a great deal of publications. Just so you know, there's been more than 250 publications done by the CTIC faculty during the 10-year span we've been doing this across all different journals. But one of the big points is it's not just law journals anymore, that we're reaching into new areas, and the deeper understanding of what clients need has been really profound. One of the things that's an evolution in my life is I've actually been doing more and more international work and comparative work. In many countries in the world, the lawyers just do law. In fact, there are many different kinds of advisors who can can also compete for that business, whether they're accountants or some form of consultants. And it's fairly clear to me that people who just understand law cannot advise their clients effectively in certain circumstances and cannot really present the alternatives that they need. If I can't do that, what can I do? So Lauren Steinfeld, who many of you know is the Chief Privacy Officer for Penn Medicine, former Chief Privacy Officer of the university, and more importantly is Professor Knoll's wife, co-teaches with me, and she always tells lawyers, we used to say no. We're trying to get you to say no, but. And the real answer we're trying to get you to say is yes, but. Because clients don't come to you for no, they come to you to solve problems. And you have to understand what the clients need in order to solve their problems. The other thing I love about this is that, in fact, we are an underappreciated asset. There was in 2014 a study that was done that looked at who the best ranked IP faculty in the country were. And depending on how you cut it, different ways, I won't bore you with it, but actually I think we have an outstanding faculty. It's the foundation for a lot of what we do. And I'm thrilled to have the colleagues that I do and that we are so collegial and so committed to really building what I think is a wonderful enterprise. We are doing now, as we said, not just ivory tower stuff. We are actually moving beyond it and doing major research projects that some people have probably heard of. National Science Foundation, I'm now working on my second and third National Science Foundation grant. The sexiest part of this is privacy and security for autonomous vehicles, which we're trying to decide what makes a properly designed one, and we know they're hackable, and all things are hackable now. That's an incredible problem. We're doing comparative work on antitrust law in comparing China, US, and the EU. I started this with the motivation of $1 billion fine against Qualcomm, which has a remarkable ability to focus people's minds on things. And now we're facing a $2.7 billion potential liability against Google, and that's one of 3 cases up to $12 billion. And what you see, I went to India for the international regulators meeting in antitrust. And the tone there is it's just a question of when, not if. the entire world is going to come down hard on the tech industry, on the pure antitrust space, and anyone who's been watching Mark Zuckerberg twist in the wind and actually is doing it now before the House, having done it yesterday in the Senate, understands just how far this has come. And that's been a big problem. And then we're also doing this project called One World Connected on the more, I think, of aspirational side. Try to figure out only half of the world has access to the internet now. Of the 7 billion people in the world, we're trying to find a way to connect the other half. And all the benefits and all the things that we see that go hand in hand with that, we're working very hard to find out what's actually working. And what we're discovering is that we're in a unique position as universities to get information. We can sign non-disclosure agreements that hold up. And what I find is the international organizations that have the data can't pick winners and losers politically. And what we can do is make an honest assessment of what's working, and there's a real a unique place for university-based research that can contribute something that no one else can do. So I'm incredibly proud of what we've done on the faculty and research side, but in many ways, and we're doing more and more events. I mean, the funny thing that struck me is when I started working on the center in 2007, I did one conference, and I was very proud of that, and it was my whole life for a little while, and the PIPG did one conference, and that was our first year. And now what we see is a growth of events where we've added student-oriented career series. We're doing more and more public programs really designed to take the expertise that we're talking about into the local bar. And those events have started to attract traffic from people as far away as New York and DC, and really establishing it as a thought leader, not just for things, conversations about scholarship, but much more broadly. And I think it's made us much more engaged. And we just had a wonderful series of events from all different walks. You know, we've had, I mean, just so you know, that's Hal Varian of Google. We have different sorts of people all over the place. We're trying to be a thought leader in copyright with our annual roundtable. We have law and computer science. We did a landmark thing on trademark. We had events on patent venue just in the last month. It's been amazing on blockchain. And upcoming literally in the next week, on Friday, we have a conference on fintech. The following week, we have the inaugural conference of the Journal of Law and Innovation on how patent and copyright are interacting with each other. And then 3 or 4 days after that, we're having a conference on spectrum policy. And so we have a lot of things going on here to try to make this all very real. And we're actually trying to reach out into the real world. We're doing a series of policy-oriented events. Just for your information, that one at first is acting chairman of the FTC, Maureen Olhausen, an event we did in DC. Jessica Rosenworcel came here to Philadelphia. She's the current FCC commissioner. At the bottom is Ed Rendell on an empirical study we did on how to connect more people, whether we can use fiber done by municipal governments. And then lastly, just a short time ago, Macon Delrahim, who is the antitrust enforcer for the Department of Justice, gave a major speech on how to think about intellectual property and antitrust. And it's been actually picked up a great deal. I was at a conference yesterday where actually Macon referred directly to the speech, and he considered this as a major part of what he's doing, and it will be the first publication in the inaugural issue of the new journal we're making. So we're really trying to do a lot of different things. What I'm really excited about, and I'm going to give way in a few minutes to really hear from the students who can talk about this, is that we see this incredibly rich student involvement, which I think is really important. So as the dean mentioned, we have the Detkin Intellectual Property Clinic, which unlike other clinics, clinics have limitations, they can only serve indigents and nonprofits. The problem is it's hard to get mature technologies that have real value. They've actually created a model that's working really well to educate our students in a unique way. As I mentioned this, the journal, we've created an innovative joint degree program where some courageous students who don't have backgrounds in STEM are willing to get masters in engineering to train themselves for the next generation and become a new type of professional. And increasingly, 10% of our incoming class is STEM and growing. And so we're seeing a change in the student body in the way we're meeting it. We're trying to meet those needs. We're giving some public interest fellowships to allow people to get those experiences. We're having paid internships with the partners that we have of our many friends in the industry in the world. We provide student research fellowships. We're trying to do this in many, many different ways. We sponsor the moot court competitions. We are, like Villanova, the national champions 2 of the last 3 years in the Giles Rich Patent Moot Court competition, courtesy of one Stephen Desalvo, who's here to join us and who's pictured on the upper left-hand corner, proudly holding his prize. We've a 2-time national champion in the IP Law Meet, which is a new moot court designed to do negotiations, and we've created a really rich set of opportunities. I'm actually very proud of the student organizations. The Penn Intellectual Property Group is really outstanding. I think the Journal of Law and Innovation has made huge strides this year. Actually, there's a student who was supposed to be here, who I didn't see here, founded a public interest group called Students for Technological Progress to enable students who are interested in technology to fulfill their pro bono obligations in that space. And another program that Stephen's been involved in, which is Partners for Entrepreneurial Engineering in Penn Law, otherwise known as PEOPLE, is really about bringing engineering students and law students together to help them learn how to interact with each other. And PIPG does an outstanding conference, and I can't help but mention this. They did one several years ago, which led to one of my favorite moments in law, which is they did one on fashion law, and they actually used what looks like the Louis Vuitton logos, but instead of the little VL, it's a little trademark. Characteristic of Louis Vuitton, we got a demand letter to cease and desist. Every time this happens in the real world, people roll over because they're afraid. The good news is we're a university. And the other good news is we had a general counsel's office that not only backed us up on this, but they did it with good humor. Every case they cited was a Louis Vuitton case where they pushed this and lost on fair use. And the response of the students was not to get angry, it was to invite them to the symposium to explain their point of view, which Louis Vuitton declined. But these are great moments, and this is the kind of part of what I think is the rich community. I've seen programs which have faculty, or basically faculty things without student involvement. I've seen student programs that don't have faculty involved. What we really want is the kind of rich community that brings all parts of this together in ways that I just think have been fabulous here, and I couldn't be more grateful to everyone who's involved. That is really a brief overview. There's many more things I can say about it. What I really wanted to say is basically to acknowledge how far we've come and to say thank you. Thank you for the people who've been part of the programming. Thank you to the people who've attended, because none of this is, and the students and the faculty, none of this would be possible without you. And there's actually some supporters in the room who've actually made this program financially possible. All this couldn't happen without you. I'm deeply grateful to every one of you. So this is my way. A time for us to sit back and say thank you very much. So the other thing that I wanted to do as the last part of the lunch program is to create an opportunity for you to hear this from students, because people get tired of hearing me. I'm already tired of hearing me. But I'm delighted to have this chance. The first person I'd like to invite up is Teddy Josephson. Teddy Josephson is a Penn undergrad and JD student here, who is one of the brave souls who had the courage to take the joint degree program, even though you were an English major as an undergrad. Anyway, Teddy, come on.
Hi, everybody. As Professor, you said, I'm Teddy Josephson, and I hope my wardrobe choice of a leather jacket has shown just how punk rock, law, and tech has gotten here at Penn in the past 10 years. So I'm going to graduate next May with a JD and a master's in computer and information technology. But before that, I studied English literature, as Professor, you mentioned, here at Penn. And before law school, I spent a couple of years in New York working in the fashion industry. So I was not someone you would expect to see pursuing a master's in the computer science space. But I had this interest in technology and this regret that I had never pursued that interest at an academic level. And that's where Penn Law and CTIC come in and literally changed my life. So I was an admitted student standing on a train platform watching the sunset over the Hudson River. This is true. And I wasn't sure which law school to choose. And I opened an email from Professor Yu that introduced the concept of a joint degree in law and technology, which I had never heard of. And the email included the line, "The JD MCIT program is ideal for those with no prior degree in engineering or computer science, but who are interested in meaningful careers at the intersection of law and technology." So by the time the train pulled into Grand Central, I had decided on Penn Law. But I couldn't yet imagine just how rich the Penn Law and technology experience could be and how important a role CTIC would play in my time here. Because as it turns out, all of the most exciting academic, co-curricular, and summer employment opportunities I've been able to take advantage of in my 3 years here so far have benefited from CTIC support. So when I reflect on the impact CTIC has had on me personally, the first thing that comes to mind is the impact on my academic experience, which plays out in two different ways. So the first is through this joint degree program that I'm participating in, because the opportunity to pursue a technology degree without a computer science background means that my career can go places I would never have dreamed with just a BA in English. I was also awarded a scholarship from CTIC in support of my MCIT degree. And the second degree means an additional year of school. So as a CTIC scholar, I've been able to offset a portion of those tuition costs, for which I am extremely grateful. And the second way CTIC has impacted my academic experience is through the classes taught by CTIC faculty at the law school. So far, I've had the opportunity to take Introduction to Intellectual Property with Professor Wagner, Internet Law with Professor Yu, and the Deck and Intellectual Property Clinic with Professor Dahl. And to me, what's so incredible about these CTIC faculty members is not just the wealth of classes that they offer, but truly that each of these professors has been among the best teachers that I've ever had, and has truly served to increase my personal excitement to pursue a career in technology and IP law. CTIC's also been incredibly important in my co-curricular activities. Professor Yu introduced the Penn Intellectual Property Group, and that group has a very strong relationship with CTIC. And last year, I served as a co-chair of the group symposium. And through that close relationship, CTIC was one of our major sponsors, which allowed us to bring in amazing speakers and have a great event. We also were able to consult with Professors Yu, Dahl, Wagner, and Abrams for guidance, not only in planning our theme and our panels, but for their talents as moderators. So that relationship is not just one of sponsorship, but is one truly of mentorship and wisdom, which was so incredible. And finally, CTIC offers a public interest summer fellowship for students interested in pursuing work related to technology policy, intellectual property, cyber law, privacy, all the really fun, cool things that CTIC works on. And thanks to this fellowship, I was able to spend last summer as an intern at the Harvard Cyber Law Clinic, where I got to work on issues ranging from parsing intellectual property ownership in the artificial intelligence space to analyzing proposed legislation that would codify the government's response to known vulnerabilities identified in software or hardware that could leave them at risk of hacking. So basically, I got to have the coolest summer job ever, although KJ went to NASA, so maybe he would fight me on that. But I've seen firsthand over the last 3 years how CTIC, through both the resources that it makes available to students and the willingness of faculty to go just above and beyond, can open up a world of possibility for law students. So I'm just thrilled that we can celebrate 10 years of CTIC today and excited for the opportunities and discoveries to come on the way to 10 more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. And I'm sorry, I even know all this and I'm still inspired by it, so thank you. The second student I'd love, recent graduate, newly minted graduate I'd like to invite up is Stephen Desalvo, who graduated last May and is currently clerking on the Third Circuit for Kent Jordan, but also has had a different but equally rich experience here, taking advantage of the opportunities at Penn. Stephen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen. I studied chemical engineering at Syracuse University, and after my undergraduate career, I came to Penn Law in search of a legal education that, while broadly focused on the doctrinal necessities for a successful career in law, would also give me the opportunity to work on give me an opportunity to work in the area of the law I was most interested in, and that was patent litigation in particular. And reflecting back on my experience at Penn Law, which was just last year, so it doesn't feel like too long ago, I think 5 main experiences come to the top of my mind that really show the impact of CTIC and the CTIC faculty on the intellectual property program here, and in particular the patent program that's offered. And before I go through some of these experiences, the 5 experiences I've identified, I want to just say I think that the experience I've had pales in comparison to so many of the other students and the great things that are going on, such as a lot of the people at the table back there, Greg and KJ, Teddy, Josh, Richard, and everyone else. So I encourage you to ask them about their experiences too, because they have so many great things to offer. So first, several years ago, as Professor Yu alluded to and sort of mentioned, there is the Partnership in Entrepreneurial Engineering and Penn Law program. That's the People program. I was the co-director during my 2nd and 3rd years of law school. It was started a few years before that by a person named Doug Wetzel, who's also was a former student at Penn Law. And he wanted to continue the program even after leaving, and I thought, as a 1L, having done the program, that I think everyone else in the program was 3Ls and was leaving, so I was the only person by misfortune to have, for him, but great for me, to be able to take on the program. And I think that the program really grew, especially my third year, brought on another 2L to help continue the legacy. And I think the program, to start, is really taking engineering students in the engineering school, and they're focused on entrepreneurship, coming up with a project or a service. And on a team, they need IP advice from someone about how, when they pitch this to investors, they should focus on why venture capital for this project is good. And a lot of times patents and patent protection is going to be chief among them. But even if there's patents, blocking patents in place, they want to know about licensing and what the costs are going to be so that they can tell their investors what they're supposed to take comfort in. As a former engineering student, it was really rewarding to see the engineers ask questions from a legal perspective. And as a law student, it was even more rewarding to be able to get firsthand non-litigation experience, more transactional experience, first sitting down and interviewing a bunch of students, asking them questions about their product or service, later doing research independently and going back to them and saying, here's what I found. And of course, they'll bring up trademark, trade secret, and copyright issues, and inevitably corporate law issues as well. And I'll say, oh, that's not my area of expertise, but ask Professor Hoffman, and he's happy to help. The second experience was the growth of the number of seminar programs that are available here at Penn Law, tailored to patent litigation. For example, when I was here, I took a class with Chief Judge Stark, who's still teaching this class now, called Pharmaceutical Patent Litigation. And that class is specifically focused on Hatch-Waxman litigation, the branded versus generic fighting, theories of litigation. And it was a great way to learn from someone who sees this every day in court what some of the most intricate areas of the law are with respect to patent litigation in the pharmaceutical context. The third realm would be Professor Wagner's continuation of the patent law Pellet Advocacy class. That class was very useful to me because it provides an alternative to the generic appellate advocacy classes that are offered, because it's specifically focused on, for people interested in technology, patent litigation and patent-related or IP-related technology type arguments. The class is taught in conjunction with and sort of centers around the Giles S. Rich Moot Court competition. And so they release a problem every year, and then students work around writing briefing for that problem and then arguing before the regional round, and if you make it from the regional round to the national round at the Federal Circuit. Professor Yu put up a picture of me and Matt Lembo, who was my partner. We participated last year in the class and in the program, and Matt was the taller one, or I could just say I'm the shorter one, so however you want to look at it. We went to Georgia for the regional round, and then we went to the national round in Washington, D.C., and it was one of the most rewarding substantive experiences that I could have that was very much due to the CTIC faculty that have grown that program. And it was, in addition to Professor Wagner's flipped patent law class, one of the most heavy application-based classes I got here in law school, which is very helpful. The fourth thing that I would say is the opportunity to work directly with the faculty. I did an independent study with Professor Wagner while I was here. My interest was, and largely still is, at least from an academic focus, on the intersection between patent law and procedure, civil procedure, and I wrote about preclusion doctrine in the patent context, and specifically about rethinking issue preclusion as it relates to patent validity. And Professor Wagner worked directly with me to point out a lot of the flaws in what I was thinking and ways to improve what I was writing on, and it was eventually accepted for publication in the Penn Law Review and was published last year. And that leads to my fifth and final thing, which is the effect and impact CTIC has had in the Penn Law faculty and CTIC faculty on journals here at the law school. I was the managing editor for the Law Review, and part of what I did through my experiences in my 1L and 2L years was talk to the journal and the board a lot about changing a little bit of our direction when it comes to how we deal with the empirical growth of research. There's a lot more publications being published that have empirical data in them, and law students are not always the best equipped to handle that, especially when you're on a generalized journal where most of the people don't have technology or data, math backgrounds. I also talked a lot about trying to advocate for more articles that were IP property-based focused, and I think you'll find that in volume 165 and 166 continuing this year, they've published a lot more property-related articles. And even more importantly, a lot of the third-year law students got together with Professor Yu and other CTIC faculty members and are now starting the IP journal here at Penn Law, which I think is going to be very impactful in the field and very useful, especially to the students here who are very interested in the program. And those are my 5 main experiences. But one other thing I will say, trade secret law was a course now being offered at the law school, and I took it my second year, and it was perfectly timed because it came just a few months before Congress enacted the DTSA. And when I went to Kirkland for my summer experience that summer, they were actually talking a lot about, as I think most law firms were talking about, ways to grow business in the IP group as a result of the federalization of trade secret law. And I was in a unique position because of that course and the faculty here to be able to contribute to shaping what that business opportunity might look like, having a background specifically in trade secret law. So Penn Law has offered, through the CTIC Center and the CTIC faculty, great opportunities, not just to me, but to everyone, and we're all grateful.
Well, thank you very much, Steve and Teddy. And that, again, is really, to me, reminds me of why we're doing this and the things that we can do with the kind of community we've been able to build here, of which all of you are part. So thank you very much. That will conclude the lunch portion. Just so you know what happens next, we will now adjourn to the 2 alumni panels and the distinguished group of alumni who willingly have agreed to come back and share their perspective looking back with us. That will happen in Fitz Auditorium. We will try, it's supposed to start, unfortunately, in 5 minutes, and we do have a live stream audience out there in the ether, so we'll try to start that as quickly as possible. But before you go, I'd like to say 2 things. We have a parting gift for you, or it's a gift for the whole day. I hope you're not parting. Just so you know, they're in bags in the back, but just so you know, the mundane part of it is we're going to share with you our annual report, just because that's what we do. Just so you know all the things we're doing. But more importantly, we have 2 sort of tech-oriented gifts for you. One is an umbrella that has a GPS chip that coordinates with an app you can download to your phone, so it'll tell you when you need to take the umbrella because of the weather and it's going to rain. And the second is much less low-tech, but maybe more important. It is a small privacy screen that you can put over your camera on your laptop with a little opaque shutter you can slide back and forth. And it's because CTIC cares about your privacy and wants to make sure you have the opportunity to do that, but they are both in the bags in the back of the room. So on your way down to the events in Fitz, I hope I invite all of you and urge all of you to pick one up and take me with you. We will adjourn this for now. I would like to say thank you to everyone who helped make this possible. The dean, we had a planning committee that all worked very hard on this. We're running late, and so with apologies to the people to whom I owe a lot of thanks, I'm going to keep that short. But please know that we all deeply appreciate it, and I shall see you downstairs shortly in Fitz Auditorium.